Welcome to Energetics with Kim and Veronica, where we invite you to nourish the energy of your inner why, your inner healing, magic, prosperity, your curiosity, clarity, playfulness. Welcome home.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Kim.
Hello, Miss Veronica.
Thank you, everyone, for participating in this conversation and for listening into our podcast series. We're so grateful that you're here for one episode or for all of them. And you know, we really position this as a conversation between Kim and I, but we see all of you sitting with us, and your energy and your curiosity is contributing to, you know, what comes forth. So thank you. And I am Veronica, and I can be found on Instagram at Veronica Rose. That's Rose. And Kim, where can folks find you?
Right here in my home. So I am Kim Coleman, and you can find me at growingbeyond.com as well as Facebook and Instagram as well, I think. Yeah, I'm on there too.
Yeah. Awesome.
And right here.
Beautiful.
And we're on YouTube as well under Energetics. Yes.
Yes. Awesome. And we, we're really just here to share the experience we've had through the embodiment of wisdom and tools and practices and processes as it relates to energetics and, you know, emotional intelligence and, you know, rewiring our neural pathways and how we take all of that and live with it and utilize it as a way to live our magnificence and our brilliance as it manifests in divine order. And so we have already had one podcast episode where we talked about surrender, and we decided to bring surrender back on the table for another conversation because it can be complex. Even though it's simple, it can be tough to navigate as a human. It's easy to, you know, talk about the concept of surrender, but when we're in the heat of anything, you know, really, how do we navigate that? It can be really tough. And Kim and I are, you know, we continue to learn and to explore and to evolve. It's not like everything's mastered and we're, you know, polished gems walking around in the world. We really live by these tools and principles, and we continue to allow them to evolve and really serve us. And so love to share that journey with you as we explore.
Absolutely. And like anything else, there's nooks and crannies and twists and turns and new pieces and old pieces that show up different. And so even when we're talking about anything, it's not like, okay, there's how you do that. No, that's how you do that time. Right. And so with the surrender thing, I don't know about you, Miss Veronica, Rose, but my God, there's a lot to surrender to for me in my life right now. I have a rather large family. And so there's a lot of surrendering. And again, surrendering is not throwing in the towel and giving up. And yet it can feel like that at times.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And so it's not about giving up. It's about recognizing, okay, it's not going the way I wanted it to. And if it's true that the universe truly has my back, can I just let go and trust what's in front of me? And this is how I thought it should be, but it's something different. And surrendering to me is about surrendering to something else that is showing up different than I thought it would. And often there's way more magic in that than how I thought it should look, right? Because when we're doing that, when we have a format, if you will, and yes, formats are great, but going with the flow is also surrendering to what is in a way of, okay, so this is how I thought it was going to go. Oh, there's a little curve there. And that didn't work out. I can throw in the towel, or I can surrender to how it is turning out And when I do that, now I can be back in the flow of, hey, universe, now what? Or God, or whatever. But there, and we talked about in the last one about that a little bit. Is there anything you want to add to that, Miss Veronica?
Yeah, the only thing that I was thinking is just to, to another call out, because both of us really loved this book, the Surrender Experiment by Michael A. Singer. So, as if you're into reading and want to explore it, like he's lived his life in surrender, and it's such a beautiful witness to the unfolding when you are in this dance with life. And sometimes surrender can feel very submissive, and yet it can be the strongest thing that you could do. And so when you really embrace surrender in a kind of almost like a warrior type fashion, it really can be the key to moving through and navigating through some difficult times to arrive on the other side with, beauty and brilliance and magnificence. So just wanted to call out that book as well.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks. And so yeah, so we also talked in the last one, in our last speaking about surrendering, about that doesn't mean you don't get to have your emotions about the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
Now, for me, surrendering is something that I've been practicing a lot. And so surrendering to what is can be somewhat, it's a practice for me. And so it can somewhat be a lot easier now for me than it used to be. And the surrendering to the emotional part of it showed up totally different for me recently. So just a minute ago, I said, it doesn't mean you're giving up or throwing in the towel. Guess what? It was for me this week. It was. So what I chose to surrender to, or I didn't recognize it as surrendering in the moment. In the moment, it was anger, rage, making myself wrong for that. Because, hey, I've been facilitating and teaching consciousness and healing and energy work since the 90s. So all of that came with it. And so there was the anger at everything. So there was no way in that moment that I could even surrender to what is and how things were going. First, I had to surrender to my anger and my rage and this thing of just wanting to throw in the towel and give up. And that's what I did. So I couldn't get to surrendering to what is until I surrendered to how I felt about it. Now, I didn't identify it in the moment that that's what was happening in the moment. I was just angry. I was angry. I was angry at myself. I was angry at everything. I was angry at, at my partner. I was angry at God. And so I was like, I give up. I'm just giving up. And, I'm tired of this, all of that. So that's what I had to surrender to, these deep, deep, deep feels. And how much of it was even mine, I don't know. Right. And so I surrendered to this part of me that was so rageful and so angry. And once I surrendered to all of that and I let myself, it wasn't about feeling sorry for myself, not even, but if that had been there, I would have surrendered to that too. And that's what I'm trying to say here is I chose to surrender into the deep madness of myself, the madness, the anger, the rage. And once I surrendered to that and allowed myself to be it, right? It wasn't like I hurt anybody or, it's not about that. It's, when you have rage or anger, it's also about what you do with it too, right? And yeah, I probably said something to Ken that wasn't nice, right? But I can be accountable for that and apologize later, right? And so, but I had to surrender in that moment. It was like a quite a few hours that this lasted for me. And I was just so fed up. I was just so fed up and so angry and pissed off. And, I've been doing this surrendering to what is since the 90s. Are you kidding me? Right. But there was this other piece so I've always been okay to have my feels about what's going on, but this was different. This was totally different. So for me, surrendering to my feels about it before this particular, whatever you want to call it, experience was like, yeah, I'm not happy about it. I'm pissed off about it, but I truly can get the feel of the universe has my back and there's something bigger here than I can possibly even imagine.
Yeah.
And surrendering to that, I could not do that this time. It wasn't accessible for me. I had to surrender to how pissed off I was and let that be okay. Right now, that could be, for me, it was walking around my property. I have a pretty large property. So it was about doing it that way and crying and the ugly tears. When I say the ugly tears, like, those ones, right? And so for me, there's sacred tears, and then there's, there's all of it. There's all of it. I typically practice allowing myself all of that. This was different. It was different. It was definitely different. It was surrendering to how I felt about things on a level that I didn't even know was there. And again, in the moment, I didn't recognize it as surrendering, right? But I couldn't surrender to what was going on in the situation until I surrendered to how I felt about it, which I didn't recognize until the next day or later or something, where I went, oh my God, yeah, I was really pissed off. And yeah, I was really angry. And I wanted to give up, and I was mad at God. I was mad at the universe. I was exhausted with it all. And then it took me a while to go, oh my God, what I did was I surrendered to how I felt about the whole thing. I surrendered to all my feels about the whole thing, right? And it was a lot. And once I surrendered to that, oh my God, then the magic showed up. Then the surrendering to what is showed up. Then things started to align that turned out way better than I could have possibly hoped for. But I couldn't get there until I surrendered to what was there in the moment. It just did not seem accessible to me to be able to just surrender to what is, trusting that the universe has my back. I couldn't get there. It was amazing. And I hope my wish is for anybody that is hearing this to know that it's okay to surrender to that part of you, even if it's, whatever it is. And it's going to be different for everybody, and how you surrender and what the surrendering looks like, right? What the surrendering looks like. And for me, it was, I was just so fed up. Yeah.
Such a beautiful awareness, Kim. Thank you for sharing all of that. And I do think like the emotional process is so important. And sometimes we, especially when we're talking about surrender, we can maybe misinterpret that the emotions shouldn't be there. Like we should be at a place where we can skip the emotions and just get to the surrender and trusting that all is well and that all will unfold well. But the emotional component is so important. And I think as humans, this is such an important part of our experience here. And we, to be able to your point, surrender to the emotions and allow the emotions to move through us is such a critical point. It's such a critical part of that whole process. And usually the first piece of surrender, right? Like to your point, like you're not always recognizing in the moment that this is part of the surrender journey, but I think it really is. And everyone's going to experience those emotions differently. I had a disappointment in, a couple months ago as it related to work, and I was being really like teed up to move into a really big promotion that didn't happen for various reasons. And when I learned the news, I was surprised at how sad I was. Like I cried for 2 days. And it was so interesting to watch myself go through that and to allow myself to surrender to that sadness, because it's not a big deal, right? Like I have a great job. I have good income. Like everything's fine. I have my health. But I felt really sad, and I really honored that sadness. And just allowed the tears to come, and allowed myself to feel the sadness as long as it wanted to be there. And the tears were there for maybe a day or two, and the sadness felt like it was there for probably 2 weeks. And then once that emotion had moved through, I was like, okay, it is what it is. And I was, and then I was okay with it. And I, trusted then that there was, either a really, beautiful reason that it didn't happen right now, or that something else was unfolding for me. I don't know. Let's wait and see. But one of the things that can get us stuck when we are processing the emotions is the story we start to tell around the emotion, right? So when I was feeling that sadness, it would have been very easy for me to go into, they did wrong by me, and this is not my fault, and why is this happening to me, right? The stories, which then lock in that tough emotion instead of just stopping the stories and just allowing the emotions to move through, right? The energy, emotions being energy in motion, they're designed to move through us, and we don't know the timing and we don't know the intensity, but as long as we can be with them and feel them and really be conscious about not creating those stories that can lock them in or turn them into something else, it really is the quickest path to move through it. And I have zero discomfort around that situation anymore. And I think it really is because I did surrender to that feeling and just allow the emotions to move through me. And now I can move on with, I do trust the universe has my back, and I can move on with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a little bit of a nuance of a difference between surrendering and allowing as well. Like for me, so it's almost as if there's allowing it, but I have to surrender in order to allow it. Right. And to your point, it's 100%. I guess I wasn't identifying that allowing the emotions was part of surrendering. So I had to surrender in order to allow. So the surrendering for me was I had to surrender to it in order to allow it, in order to surrender to what was going on, and to what is. And like I said, once I was able to do that, oh my God, like so much greatness happened. And yeah, surrendering to those emotions.
Yeah. I think the other thing that we sometimes try to do in the moment is try to understand it and figure it
Oh
out.
God.
Right.
Yeah. Then you're standing under it.
Right. It
Right.
locks
The
you
word
in
under.
there, right?
Yeah, exactly. Trying to, I know. Yeah, that's a big one for people because that was something that we were taught. Where did it
Mm-hmm.
come from? Try to, figure it out. And oh my God, now you're down the rabbit hole. So instead of just letting it go, now you're analyzing it to pieces, right? And 100% I know that this particular lifetime is a cleanup lifetime. So
Mm-hmm.
we're working with unfinished business that could be from other lifetimes. We don't know. And so how could I figure out the why in this lifetime?
Yeah.
Right. And so for me, I look at that and go, well, yeah, I'm not going down that rabbit hole. I could, but to me, that's a distraction.
Mm-hmm.
It's another distraction. It'll distract me from my emotions and from my feels. if I've now paused and try to analyze it, which is linear. That's analytical thinking. There's nothing wrong with that. But for me, it can take me a lot longer for those feels and those emotions to move if I'm now analyzing it and trying to figure it out. No, it's moving because it wants to move. It's energy and it's moving. When I pause it to figure it out, we've just slowed down the molecules of consciousness.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And and to figure out the why. And can we really ever figure out the why? Maybe sometimes, but hey, like that thing just wants to move. It's already moving and you see it. It's like it's moving, it's coming up and out, right? It's coming up and out. And then I see it and it's moving and I go, oh, and it goes, oh. And we're looking at each other now and going, oh, right? And so now I've slowed down those molecules of consciousness. They were moving and grooving and doing their thing, but I've slowed them down for what reason? Because I'm going to try to figure them out. They're looking at me, I'm looking at it. Right? And and so when we can just go, oh, look at that, that's moving from me. So another thing that I became aware of, I don't know if I mentioned this on one of our other speaks or not, but sometimes for me it's easy to go, oh my God, there's so much coming at me right now. Right? Because again, there's a lot going on with my mom and different things and other things and other things and other things. And so it's really easy. I noticed myself one day going, oh my God, there's so much No, somebody said that to me. Oh my God, there's a lot coming at you right now. And I went, oh, something doesn't actually feel true about that for me. And I went, oh, is it stuff coming at me or is it old energies coming from me? So people, and myself included, would misidentify it as stuff is coming at me. What if what's actually true is it's stuff that's been in there that's coming from you? And so when we can go, oh wow, okay, look at that coming from me, and that means it's releasing, it's letting go, right? And so when if I'm having dreams or anything like that, or stuff is happening like that, I can go, wow, okay, this is old energies, could be from another lifetime, who cares, right? Coming from me. What if it's possible that it's just letting go and I'm just noticing it? Looks like it's coming at me, right? Looks like it's coming at me. But is it? Or is it actually coming from me and I'm noticing it and looking at it and going, oh, and it's going, oh.
I like that. Oh.
I see you. I see you too. Yeah.
I love that. Such great awareness and so simple in some ways when that awareness and understanding clicks, and yet can be so difficult, especially when you're in the heat of the discomfort of whatever you're navigating. We often want to ease the pressure, and blame will ease the pressure. And so that can be just an easy default to go to of like, just, okay, I'm going to blame the universe or God or the person involved, or right. Cause it just it eases the pressure off of us. But when we can just stay present with the emotion, it reveals the medicine. It gives us the medicine. It reveals the beauty. It takes us through the journey of healing what is right for us in the moment. And so that really has been, I think, key for both you and I as we've played with this. And what comes on the other side of it is the beauty and the brilliance and the magnificence of life. And when we stop to try to understand it, when we stop to try to distract ourselves from it, when we don't allow it to move through, when we tell stories around it that are unnecessary, we don't make it to that other side as quickly or as easily. So really inviting everyone to look at that in your life, maybe now, or maybe it's, a couple weeks or a couple months from now where you might be going through something heavy, and just recognizing that like it's a part of our journey, and it's something we are fortunate to be able to experience, even though it can be really uncomfortable.
And surrendering to all of it, and that includes how you feel about it without making yourself wrong. Now, I have somebody that and it's also if you have somebody who you can call, who can receive it, or who you can sit with, who can receive it, or booking a session with somebody or whatever. So for me, I know my audience. For me, I know, okay, I would never call this person because they can't be with their own stuff, let alone allow me to be in mine. And so, yeah, so there is that. It's about reaching out as well. And so I reached out to a lady, and she was kind of we just both had a good cry. We had a good cry together, and we appreciated each other for that space to cry together and be angry at the world and all the things. And then we got to a place of crying, and then I think we got to a place of laughing.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And to your point, not everyone can hold that with you. Some people want to go in to try to fix it or coach you through it,
Oh
or
God.
sometimes you just need to be with it, and it's nice to have somebody that can be there with you while you're being with it.
100%. And yeah, like, and knowing who those people are. Like, I have somebody I go to this with, somebody I go to that with, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can't expect one person to be all of that for me. So yeah, definitely knowing who your people are for what. And because yeah, like, it wouldn't be a kindness for you to be in that space of surrendering to your emotions and somebody trying to help you to see the positive of it. If you're not there yet, you've got to be with somebody who can be with you with where you are at. And that gives you space to be with yourself with where you're at, which is what will help these energies to move through. Right. And so there's a lot of people who will want to help you, and they come from that place of loving you and caring. And so they might try to coach you in those moments. Right. And that's not what you need in that moment. It's like I couldn't get to surrendering to what is until I could surrender to how I felt about what is. And I did. And I got there. And like I said, then I could surrender to what is. And then when I surrendered to what is, oh my God, things turned out better than I could have possibly imagined.
I love that.
Thanks,
I love
me too.
that. Oh, so beautiful. It's amazing. Thank you for sharing all of that, Kim. It's so helpful.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. And any other takeaways that you would share for anyone listening?
Yeah, just surrender.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. I don't know.
Awesome.
I don't know what other takeaways I would have about that. Yeah. We shall see.
We laid it out. Yeah. Well, thanks everyone.
Awesome.
Come find us wherever we are if you would like to interact with us, and hope to hear you and see you and feel you on the next episode. Thanks so much, everyone. Thanks, Kim.
Thank you, Veronica. Thanks, everyone. Big hugs and much love it.
Bye.